Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show, broadcasting to you from Radio Dabang, the premier Bollywood network for North America, broadcasting into Karachi, Mumbai, and Fort Bend County, Texas. The 2020 election was an election of the most pivotal consequences in mankind's history. That election would determine the fate of mankind, whether we would have a dark, totalitarian fate or one of hope and a second chance. The choices in that election were stark. They were clear to everyone, and the population of the world knew what they wanted. The population of the world in that 2020 election stood behind President Donald Trump. It's without question. Just to give you a couple of ideas, in Erie County, Pennsylvania is a city of 60,000 people. And in that city, they had a Trump MAGA rally that had 60,000 people in attendance. Nearly everybody in Erie, Pennsylvania attended the Trump MAGA rally. And that could be said across the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was Trump country. The Amish in the state of Pennsylvania had an Amish-only Trump rally. An Amish and their horse and buggy came in such numbers it outnumbered a General Kamala Biden rally. Here in Texas, our Indian community put together a Trump rally. We had 60,000 mostly ethnic Indians attend a Trump rally in Houston, Texas, where Indians from all over North America came in attendance. Prime Minister Modi flew in. And so it could not be more obvious who the world wanted in that election. It was going to be a landslide. It was going to be like the 85 Chicago Bears versus Patriots. Everyone knew who was going to win that game. That was what was happening in that election. And what happened is on election night, all of the funny business started happening. We saw the thieves begin to conduct the theft in brazen broad light, right in front of our eyes. The funny business, the intimidation of poll workers, election workers pulling printed ballots out from underneath desks, reports of trucks showing up with printed ballots, weird power outages going out for certain amounts of times in election areas, and so on and so forth. And so what we witnessed was a brazen theft in front of our eyes. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. The corporate media played defense for it, and it went into place. But thankfully here in Texas, we have Texas leaders that are here to support us, that are here to defend us, to defend our sovereign right, the most critical right, which is the right to elect your political future, to elect your political leaders. And we have a war hero, a man that is a household name, and we look to him, one of our leading Texans, a man by the name of Dan Crenshaw. We look to him for guidance, for support, for leadership. And what we got back from Dan Crenshaw was we were basically told to shut up and sit down and accept your new president, Joe Biden. He put us in our place. He essentially did the work for the establishment left and, without saying it openly, supported Joe Biden. Then he went to work on the pro-war agenda. I want everyone to remember, during the Trump years, we had 4 years of peace. 4 years of peace. The only time we had peace in our lifetime. We had the Abraham Accords implemented. The Abraham Accords, in the most hostile, volatile area, people came together for peace. Why? Because of leadership. Okay? And so we had peace. And the minute that the crime theft, the theft of the 2020 election happened, boom, the pro-war agenda comes back. And who is their steadfast advocate? Who's their greatest lobbyist? Dan Crenshaw. In every way, Dan Crenshaw was supporting war. He begins initiating rhetoric with the most powerful military in the world, I mean, besides ours, Russia. He begins a rhetoric with Russia, instigating a fight. Like two high school kids staring down in the parking lot, ready to go. That's what he wanted, okay? Completely irresponsible rhetoric with this nuclear-powered sovereign country. He begins this rhetoric, and we know what he wants. He wants to put our troops on their ground. He wants our men to go up against the million-man Russian infantry in the cold Siberian forest. How does that sound as a good idea? I don't think it sounds like the best idea. But that's what he was pushing for. And then what did he did? He put basically this country of Ukraine as a dependent on our country, on our people. And I have no animosity of the people of Ukraine, but I certainly don't want the expansion of our welfare state to expand beyond our own borders. And that's what he did. And so what he was doing was he was increasing our foreign entanglements, ensuring that we create more tripwires for us to fall over and get us in one more bloody battle. You know, I'd like to remind everybody, there was a time in this country when isolationism was a good word. It was actually the farewell address of President George Washington. On his farewell address, he openly warned about foreign entanglements. He advocated for an isolationist country. And when revolutionary France came to him and said, we need your troops to enter this war, he said no. And he entered a proclamation stating that the country would not do foreign entanglements. Well, Dan Crenshaw is going to take that idea on and push that the other way. And but thankfully today we have had people try to take down Dan Crenshaw, because what we've seen is the baton be from the Rhino baton be handed from John McCain to Dan Crenshaw, and he's representing our state, the state of Texas. And so today we have a challenger to Dan Crenshaw, a man by the name of Steve Toth. And Steve Toth is not a national figure, but he's certainly known in the state of Texas. And he's known to be on the right side of liberty in the state of Texas. For those of you who are not familiar with what's happened in the state of Texas, it's been an epic battle in our Republican House. And basically what happened is the Patriot Network, the grassroots parents of Texas, we fought to put Republicans in place. We took back the Republican House. And the minute that we did, we found out that the Republicans were here for the establishment. And there was a battle that went down where essentially I would say that the establishment lost. And Steve Toth was largely at the forefront of that battle on the right side. And so I want to introduce Steve Toth today. Steve Toth will be challenging Dan Crenshaw in this upcoming primary. It's going to be Friday Night Lights in the state of Texas. It's going to be a primary that's going to get the popcorn out. It's going to be a good time. We know how to put on a show in Texas, and we're going to do it for the world stage to watch this primary in Texas between Steve Toth and Dan Crenshaw. Steve, how are you doing?
Great to be with you, Chris.
Good. How's our audio film? Is it good? Good.
It's good, man. Yeah,
okay.
It's all good.
Excellent. Very good. Maybe I need to put these headphones on. I'm sorry, because it's not coming through too, and I apologize for this. 1 second there, guys. Can you? How about now, Steve?
I can hear you great.
Okay. Good. So, Steve, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate your time. You've certainly picked a challenge. You picked a big challenge in front of you. But I think, though, that on this show here, we largely have an ethnic Indian, Pakistani listener base, and they may not be familiar with your name. So tell us a little bit about Steve Toth.
Sure, I'm a small business owner. I'm a dad, grandfather to two sets of twins. We had twins in June 6 years ago, another set of twins that came again May 31st. Our first one was born, and the second one was born 10 minutes later in June, on June 1st. I'm a small business owner. We have a construction company up here in Montgomery County and a service company. And that's really what got me into politics. The state of Texas passed legislature a few years ago that almost put me out of business. And I got so frustrated with it and decided to run against the guy that was a joint author of the bill, and I defeated him. And that's my foray into politics. And my whole thing was I just wanted to keep the boot of government off the neck of small businesses so that we could thrive and grow this Texas economy. The Texas Miracle is all about small businesses. 80% of the jobs that are created, 80% of the wealth is created by small businesses. And I just want to see them flourish and grow while we maintain liberty, because that's the only way that happens.
Excellent. Very good. I mean, you sound like a man that's went in for all the right reasons. How long have you been in the Texas State House?
So I came in 2013, served for 2 years. Then I left for 4 years, and I came back again in 2019. So this is 8.5 years.
Very good. So Tell me about your time in this 8.5 years. Like, how would you describe it? What are some of your more impactful achievements that you've had? Tell me about that.
So I believe with all my heart that our children are the future of Texas. And if you look across the world, we're seeing we're seeing the values that have made Western Europe and the United States great. Those are disintegrating. This idea of liberty and a constitutional republic that's based on these principles of liberty and freedom are being dissolved, and you're seeing this growth in this by the younger generation of the acceptance of Marxism and socialism. And I think as parents, we've largely abdicated our responsibility to train up our children in a way that reflects the values that we have established in the United States. And so it's become my passion to fight for kids. And a lot of the legislation that I have advanced, moved, and passed has been around that. So in the 87th legislative session, I fought to pass a bill, House Bill 3979. Senator Creighton carried it in the Senate that banned critical race theory in Texas classrooms. And since that time, 6 other states have picked up my legislation and passed it. And what this is about is it's about teaching children. You know, we used to believe that the United States was a melting pot. We used to believe that people should be judged by the content of their character, and not the color of their skin. Martin Luther King said that. But critical race theory is all about saying, if you're a white child, you're an oppressor. If you're a child of color, you're oppressed. And what could go wrong when you tell white children that you're an oppressor and you tell children of color that you're oppressed? You're breeding hostility into the hearts and souls of our children, and which is why you're seeing more violence in classrooms across the United States than you ever have before. And I just think it's ridiculous that we're feeding our children this stuff. This past year, I fought hard to bring sanity into our classroom when it comes to the issue of social transition of children. We're finding parents all across the state of Texas are calling my office, and it's crazy that they're not calling their own state reps. They're calling my office because I've developed a name for wanting to stand up for kids here in Texas, where kids are being transitioned. A little boy by the name of Bobby, the teacher's calling him Mary. Why? Well, because at one point he showed some confusion, gender dysphoria, and so Bobby's now being called Mary, but Bobby's parents have no idea that this is going on. And Bobby is being influenced by his teacher to believe that he's really not a boy, he's a girl. And this is the kind of stuff that just has no place in Texas classrooms anywhere in the United States for that matter. And I've been a champion of that. I passed legislation this year that bans that.
Excellent, very good. As a parent, I have been very invested in both of those battles. So if we can talk about the CRT, yes, and thank you very much. CRT, when you launched that initiative, State Representative Ron Reynolds, who is a hard leftist, he is an extremist, and he went on the corporate media, and he went on and just fought hard to keep that racial division in the schools. And I would like to say that I think that they fought and they lost that battle. I would say that's quite an achievement on your part, because I largely see the race card as a dying tool of the left. Would you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely would. If everyone's a racist, then no one's a racist. And the reality is that when you hit them with common sense and they have nothing else to say that's intelligent, they play the race card. And so they've lost every time that just out of nowhere comes the race card. wait a minute. Martin Luther King said we should judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And that's what we want to get back to. And if you look at my legislation, it looks like the 1964 Civil Rights Act. In fact, we stole the language for my bill from the 1964 Civil Rights Act that Democrats like Martin Luther King advanced. And yet, Democrats today have abdicated that position completely. Completely. So if anyone's racist here, it's them. It's them.
Yeah, absolutely. Racial division has been the cornerstone of the Democrat Party. I argue regularly.
Really has. Yep.
Yeah, I really don't find any value that party's bringing at this point. I think it's gone fully toxic. So the way I see the transitioning, this hypersexualization of our children, I want to talk, and I'm making notes here because you're making me think of new things. But the way I see that is, I think we've largely won that too, but not entirely, okay? Because we've beat them up and exposed them in the school board meetings. Your legislation was critical in that effort. I really feel like, and I'm going to talk about this more I got so many ideas here, how us parents were on the forefront. We were sort of like the first line soldiers waiting for the cavalry to arrive, which was State House doing legislation in the backfield. I really see that as how this went down in the state of Texas over the past so many years. But with social transitioning, I mean, their agenda was so gross, sick, and dark and perverted. And all we had to do was put light on it. I'd like to give a shout out to a man named David Hamilton in the Fort Bend Independent School District, who played a critical role in that in Fort Bend schools, and they absolutely maligned his name in that effort. But he is a warrior. But with that being said, they've had to go underground. The serpent always slithers through the grass, right? And so now what they're doing, this happened in HISD. It's being proposed. It's been passed in Fort Bend. They do it through contract counselors. So with contract counselors, the counseling sessions are completely confidential. Even the parents can't get access to that.
It's still illegal, though.
Yeah.
It's still illegal. And so Senate Bill 10 and 11 that we passed in the 86th legislative session said that any kind of counseling that a child undergoes, number one, mom and dad have to agree to it in writing. And then after, and this was an amendment that I hated Senate Bill 1011. It was an egregious piece of legislation. But Dr. Bonin and Greg Bonin agreed, who was the author of the bills, he agreed that he would take an amendment if we voted for it. Didn't want this legislation, but the amendment was so critically important because what it said is, you cannot put my child into counseling without my permission, and then once he's in counseling, we need to know exactly what's shared. Why? Well, it's a violation of HIPAA law to have a child in counseling outside of the school. It should be in the school as well. We just wanted to follow current law at the federal level. And so, yeah, that's the law right now. But unfortunately, what you're seeing is a lot of these districts are contracting with an organization called Communities in Schools. They're located in Austin, Texas, but they have chapters in nearly all of our districts. And they're counseling these kids, and they're giving them gender affirming, what they call gender affirming care. It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just the sickest idea. But I think that, yeah, regardless, I think the parents need to know their rights because there's a lot of gray area. And in HISD, there was just a case in Bel Air High School where parents are using law on their behalf, where a child was being secretly transitioned. So
they came to me. Those parents came to me with that case, and we've opened up an investigation on the school, but we've yet to hear the conclusion of the investigation. So I'm pushing for that right now.
Excellent, very good.
I don't know if you have time for me to go into this, but we passed Senate Bill 14 2 years ago, and Senate Bill 14 basically said there can be no gender mutilation of children. You can't do it chemically, you can't do it surgically. And but we, at the same time too, we also push for the social transitioning to stop as well, because we knew that if we didn't stop the social transitioning, that it would continue to go on. And even though we passed legislation that bans the surgical and chemical transition of children, this stuff is still going on. The reason why it's still going on is, and there have been whistleblowers at Texas Children's that have said that little girls are still being put on Lupron, which stunts the puberty process in a child. And what they're saying now is that they're not using the Lupron to transition a child. They're saying, oh, she has precocious puberty, which means her puberty is coming on too early. Well, that's not what they're doing. They're doing it to transition the children. And then once the child has gone through puberty, they go out of state for medication for cross-sex hormones. And then once the kid is 18 or 19, they go to New Mexico or they go to Colorado and they have sex change surgeries. So we have done nothing to stop this in Texas until we passed my legislation that bans the social transitioning. And it makes it absolutely illegal for communities and schools. It's already illegal for them to offer any kind of counseling and not talk to the parents about it. But now we've gone a much further step, taken a much bigger step, and said no social transition. You can't call a kid by a different pronoun than their biological sex. None of this stuff. No, a little boy can't come to school and wear a dress. That's done.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've largely moved the football down the field. I mean, we've done, it's been incredible what we've done in the state of Texas. But at the same time, I will say that the left, they are so gosh darn resilient, and they know how to pull out victories when they are down and out.
Yeah.
So, of course, we worked so hard to get the Texas State House to be majority Republican led, and once in place, then the first thing we saw from Dade Phelan was casinos in Texas was his rally cry. And here, this is so many years ago, 3-4 years ago, I don't remember. Our border was completely open. The trafficking was happening, the atrocities on that border to the people that were being trafficked, to the Texans that lived on the border. Homelessness was epic. Our currency was like water going, completely just being printed out of existence. And Dade Phelan comes in and talks about casinos in Texas. We did all this work for the Republicans to take the state house, and Dade Phelan says casinos in Texas, as if that is the burning issue on the minds of the people of Texas. And, right then and there, I knew he's a company man. My opinion on him changed in a minute. And I'm not taking a position on casinos in Texas. That's an issue for another day. But my point being is that was such an obvious dodge, and and so what I'm, how did that, tell me about that experience of just taking on the Texas establishment of, how we went from, we went from an establishment, Rhino, Texas, today, those guys are largely defeated. Just give me your opinion on that whole saga.
Yeah, Texas is the best government money can buy.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. And that session, the 87th legislative session, it should be called the no lobbyists left behind session.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not kidding you. There are 150 state reps, 31 senators, and I think each state rep had probably 5 or 6 lobbyists that were appointed to them. So there are literally 6 different lobbyists that were coming to me trying to advance lobbying and are trying to advance casinos in Texas. It was insane. And that became the priority in the 87th session. Not closing our borders. No how, no way. It was advancing casino gambling. Meanwhile, my opponent, Dan Crenshaw, is working with Democrats in Washington, D.C. on a piece of legislation. And there are only 4 or 5 Republicans in Congress, in the House that got behind this, but Crenshaw was one of them. And so while Donald Trump out of office was saying, close the border, Joe Biden. Joe Biden was saying, "Well, we can't do that. We need legislation to close the border." No, you don't. Look at, we've closed the border now. We didn't need any legislation to do it. The courts have stood behind the president in closing the border. But yeah, Biden said you got to close the border. So too did 100% of the Democrats and Dan Crenshaw. And what it would have allowed was 5,000 people into the country a day. And once it hits 5,000, um, you allow another 1,400 in. So for a total of 6,400. I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing that you have ever heard, and it would have amounted to about 1.9 million additional people into the United States every year. It just, the system was broken, and already, and Dan Crenshaw and the Democrats and the Biden administration wanted to smash it into a million pieces.
Yeah, I mean, like, through all this activism you're doing on your end, I'm doing on my end, we're really exposing these people to such a great extent, and and they're being laid bare. That those actions, that's clearly on behalf of the globalists.
Yeah.
Dan Crenshaw is a globalist. You look at his track record from top to bottom. Everything that we've been fighting at the state level, we've been fighting like an establishment effort on the state level. It's like you want to go now in the big leagues and take him on the same fight up against Dan Crenshaw. So go ahead, just tell me why you're doing this. Why you're going to go challenge Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah. So in 2018, when he ran, there was another guy that ran who was a state rep. And he was kind of squishy, kind of spineless. Nice guy, really nice guy, but he just was spineless. And along comes this Navy SEAL, which I have a great deal of admiration for veterans. I was chairman of the board of Mighty Oaks at the time. I'd been with them for 15 years nearly. And we help veterans with post-traumatic stress. I love veterans. And so, yeah, I mean, Dan Crenshaw said he was going to upend the apple cart. He said that he was going to fight the establishment and fight the swamp. And as soon as he got there, became part of the problem and threw his hat in with the Democrats. In fact, he fought the conservatives within the Republican Party harder than he fought the Democrats. He would have nice exchanges with AOC and stuff, and that would get you a lot of clickbait on social media. But the reality is that on the ground in D.C., he was fighting Mark Meadows. He was fighting Jim Jordan. He was fighting those people that were trying to shake up the establishment, to upend the status quo. And Dan Crenshaw became the moniker for the status quo. Foreign wars, while our border's wide open. Billions of dollars to Ukraine, while starving Texas of the ability to fund closing the border. It's just insane.
Yeah, I want to take a quick break and just mention our featured product of the day. It's the X39 patch. I have been on this patch for 14 days. I prior to this patch, I had a heavy caffeine dependency. I would drink 2 to 3 large caffeine drinks a day, and I no longer need those caffeine drinks. I can't look at caffeine. It's the X39 patch. To learn more information on that, text the word Patriot to 330-606-2304. Text the word Patriot to 330-606-2304, and that number will be scrolled on the bottom of the screen. So with regards to Dan Crenshaw, again, we had such high hopes for him, and then my first question mark with him was when he berated a group of young Republicans at University of Houston.
Montgomery County Tea Party meeting. I was there.
Okay. I think that might be a separate one. I'd like to hear about that. But at University of Houston.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking
about.
Yeah, right.
Because they basically brought some questions up that challenged the globalist narrative, and and they were not being hostile, and he just berated them. But I made a list here of what Dan. Okay, so just to give you an idea of Dan Crenshaw. Nearly every red flag law that was ever proposed, he supported. And he even introduced his own red flag law called the TAPS Act. The gun owners of America have called him out, and he quarrels with the gun owners of America. That's number one. Eddie Gallagher. Eddie Gallagher is a war hero. He is a special forces who was put on trial for war crimes. His brothers absolutely supported him, denounced the allegations. They've largely been proven to be false. And they called on Dan Crenshaw for help, and Dan Crenshaw lobbied for Eddie Gallagher to get the life sentence. Who does that?
The people that do that are the people that want a future with the industrial war complex. The revolving door in Congress is that if you come in to Congress as a veteran, their hope is that you're going to, once you leave Congress, you're going to be a lobbyist for them. But in order for you to get that high-paying gig as a lobbyist, you've got to be all in for them. You've got to be all in for them at the expense of your loyalty to your brothers and to teammates. And that's what he did. That's absolutely what he did. He sold Eddie Gallagher down the river. Shameful.
Was he not named a young star of the World Economic Forum?
He and Klaus Schwab, baby.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So another one. Klaus Schwab, goodness gracious. Klaus Schwab was out there talking about, I'm going to forget this one. Dan Crenshaw was absolutely dismissive of it. Maybe you can refresh my memory. So, Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And he was proposing something along those lines. I'm going to forget now. And anyways, the point being is that while Klaus Schwab was out there proposing this, Dan Crenshaw was being asked about it, and he's completely dismissive of the World Economic Forum's agenda, as if it's a nothing burger.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fully embraced. It's completely and fully embraced by Marxists in our government, and yet those are the people that he wants to hold his hand out to. Look, I get 50 years ago when Republicans and Democrats wanted to work together, should have worked together for the betterment of America, back when Democrats loved America, back when Democrats believed in law and order, back when Democrats believed that the border should be closed, back when Democrats believed in the founding principles of America, back when Democrats believed in capitalism. Remember those Democrats? You don't see those Democrats anymore. The only thing that we disagreed with Democrats on 50 years ago was how big should the social safety net be. 50 years ago, we even agreed on abortion. Democrats didn't even believe in abortion 50 years ago. Bill Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, was pro-life. Al Gore, before he got on the national stage, was pro-life. These were for the most part really good people until they got onto the federal stage. But the only thing we really disagreed with was how big should the social safety net be, and that's all we disagreed with. That's not the case anymore with these Democrats. These Democrats are full-blown Marxists. They're not socialists. They say they're socialists. They're Marxists, and they want to bring Marxism to the United States. You can't negotiate with a Marxist. We have nothing in common. We want the United States to head in two completely different directions. There's nothing to negotiate with these people. When you deal with Democrats say elections have consequences, right? When you're a Democrat, they say elections have consequences. When you're a Republican, we just want to get along. Bull. There's nothing to get along with. The reality is that for the past 20 years, we have seen that when Republicans win elections, we take office. When Democrats win elections, they wield power. And we've got to send people to Washington that want to stomp out and defeat Democrats and what they stand for and not work with them.
So, would you not say that Dan Crenshaw was the biggest lobbyist on behalf of expropriating our funds to the Ukraine? I mean, it's like, I mean, we were giving them so much money, and he was just there like a cheerleader. More, more, more. How do you justify that?
Yeah, it's crazy. And at the same time, too, while he's begging for more money and demeaning those of us that are saying, hey, there should be some accountability with this. And gee, shouldn't we do anything to secure our own southern border, Dan? And to which he would just call us grifters and performance animals. And, you know, you couldn't even have a meaningful discussion with the guy without his thin skin getting all upset about it. It was disgusting.
Yeah, he is easily perturbed. It's kind of funny.
He came to a town hall. He came to a town hall that a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, in the Woodlands at the Black Walnut, and he had all, it was basically a town hall with all the elected officials. And when we pushed back on his desire to allow 5,000 people in this bipartisan bill, I don't know how it's a bipartisan bill when all you're doing is opening up the border to allow more people in. What the heck is bipartisan about that? Which is why this bill died. And they criticized, and he criticized President Trump, saying that we had meaningful border reform. It wasn't meaningful border reform. All it was more of the same, that would just allow these people in. And when we said, this isn't acceptable, we don't want this legislation, he then said to me and other state representatives and senators, Texas can't close its border. You need us to close the border. To which we said, hey, we've closed the border in the past. We've done it. We just need for you to keep the government out of our hair so that we can keep it closed. It's just been so frustrating dealing with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he threatened Tucker Carlson to a fight. An elected leader representing the state of Texas,
Yeah, I mean, you're a Navy SEAL. Taxpayer dollars turned you into a hired basically into a professional killer, and you're going to take on a radio television personality. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, good job, Steve.
Tough guy. Yeah.
Tough guy.
Yeah. Well, we can sit here and talk about, all of the obvious downsides of Dan Crenshaw, but at the same time, he is a household name. He's a formidable competitor. What's the tone of the people of the Woodlands area? Like, what are they ready for change? Tell me how confident you are in this campaign.
It's not just the Woodlands; it's all of Congressional District 2, which is 44.5% Harris County, 55.5% Montgomery County. So, in the last election cycle, a guy ran against him, really good guy, Jameson Ellis.
Yep.
And Jameson just didn't have the ability to raise any money, so he didn't spend any money. But the crazy thing is he got 42% of the vote. Well, that's a protest. That's a protest vote when 42% of the people vote against you. That's crazy. So, yeah, he's underwater right now, and you can tell, and anecdotally, and there have been plenty of polls out there that have been run in the district that state as such that he's in real trouble right now, especially against me, because my favorability numbers are significantly higher than his in Montgomery County, which is the majority of the district. And my unfavorables are historically low compared to him. So he's in trouble. He's in worse shape than John Cornyn is right now.
That's a big statement.
Yeah.
So, should you get elected, what will we see? What are the primary drivers, the primary issues? What will we see in potential Congressman Steve Toth?
I'm gonna support the Trump agenda. Trump has been really loyal to me. He has endorsed me in the last 2 elections. He has asked me to carry legislation for him in the Texas House, which I was more than happy to do, and he's promoted it on Truth Social. And I love the Trump agenda. I love what he's doing. I love what it's doing for our economy. I love the fact that in June we actually had a surplus, a budget surplus of, I think it was like $27 billion. No, it was $87 billion. And so, yeah, I like where we're going. I like the fact that we're calling foreign trading partners to be responsible and reasonable, that we're getting away from from this most favored nation trading status, which enabled people to trade with us. And this is post World War II ideology that basically, we did this to stop the domino effect of communism from spreading across the world. Yet we're still putting it in place today that enables, we will take your products, duty free, but if we try and send our products into your nation, there's a 400% tariff on them. And Donald Trump is like, no, we're done with that. That's over with. That may have been useful for 1955 at helping Europe rebuild itself, but we're not doing that anymore. You guys have screwed us for too long, and we're done with that. And we're going to start putting America first, which is what we need to do. It's the only sensible, reasonable thing to do if we're going to pass on a country that's stronger than to our children than what we have today.
That's excellent. I argue regularly that the best is yet to come.
I agree.
The ideas that, first of all, the ideas that he's proposing, there's been a serious education propaganda effort put on probably you and me from the time of birth, where we've been told certain things simply won't work. Like, for example, tariffs. We've been told that by the establishment that tariffs won't work. And this has been, I went to business school, I went to graduate business school, and it just was pounded into my brain. And what we see President Trump reintroducing the idea that, hey, wait a minute, you were taught wrong. Tariffs were what the country operated on for 100 years. And what I see him sort of protecting industry and protecting people's wealth, the everyday average common Joe, everyday common average American, protecting their wealth with tariffs. And then he trial balloons the idea of getting rid of the income tax. And the man is not just talking smack, right? When he does that, it's probably going to come through in some legislation in the next 36 months. When I see that as in a good way, the 1-2 punch to really give this American economy. Now, and another thing, which I know is a issue on your personal agenda, which is energy independence, liberating our oil and gas sector. That's the 1-2-3 whammy. I just, there's more I could talk about. The Texas Coinage Act, incredible. But I'll stop there because I could go on and on. But my point being is, how do you? What do you think? Do you agree with me that we're on the brink of something that could be incredible?
I really do, and look, I don't disagree with what you and I were taught in school about the dangers of tariffs. But often when we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about Smoot-Hawley from 1920, right? And in Smoot-Hawley, that Tariffs Act, that was meant to close our markets to European goods. Close them. We're not trying to close our markets. We want our markets to stay open. We understand the power of world trade, but we also understand that the United States should no longer be taken care of or taken advantage of. And so you can say, okay, you're going to take our products into your country, but if you're deflating the value of your currency, that's a tariff too. And so we're looking at that. Donald Trump is recognizing that, and he's saying, okay, even if you're going to take our products, but you're going to deflate the value of your currency, then yeah, we're going to put a tariff on your products coming into our country. It's just, we want a level playing field. And that's the right and good and proper and just thing to do for American consumers and our children and grandchildren to preserve their future.
Again, put your money on America. It's going to come through. I'm 100% convinced of it. I want to move to one other thing. We have one other incredible Texan that did an incredible job for more than a decade, Congressman Ron Paul. And he was out there.
Love him.
Yeah. We respect him more every day when we realize what he was so far ahead of us, we didn't understand him entirely at the time. But he was out there uncovering the dangerous foundation of our country, which is the Federal Reserve. And again, I went to graduate school on the East Coast, business graduate school, and we were basically taught that the Fed is the gold standard. You pray to the Fed. Thank goodness that we have these wise elders to lead us through the life. But Ron Paul had a different perspective, and he had a perspective that they are nothing but a set of well-dressed gangsters, buffoons. And I think that they're largely being exposed by that. And what I see with President Trump is The Fed had this plan where they would print the debt notes, and then they would have all these reasons to spend more money that don't matter to get us on more debt, to kill us with debt. We see now Trump ending USAID, bringing the IRS cutting that staff in half. This stuff is incredible, and stating that what he wants to do is he wants to basically defund the federal government except for entitlements and necessary functions, and then distribute it to the states, which is incredible. But really, what I see him doing is, I see him setting the stage to end the Fed. The Ron Paul's slogan, "End the Fed." And again, I see that as something that would be massively consequential in a good way to the economy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, I think you had, at the turn of the century, the Fed became relevant because of the robber barons. And we had these trusts, which was crony capitalism. We had, you had monopolies that were created and protected by the federal government. That created the crisis that we went through that necessitated this creation of the Fed. Here's the reality. We don't need a Fed. We don't need the Fed, nor do we need crony capitalism involving itself into the free market. You let the free market thrive and grow, and the United States will take off like a rocket. It absolutely will. We don't need the Fed. And look at what Powell's doing right now. We have we have low inflation, the kind of numbers that we had back pre-COVID under Donald Trump. The economy is rocking along, and yet we have these high interest rates, which are doing what? It's if anything, it's a drag on the economy. We're spending more money on debt, which means that the June surplus would have been 20% higher if Powell would get his head out of his butt and lower interest rates. I agree with Trump completely on this.
Yeah. Steve, I think that we have an idea of what we can expect from you on the national level. I'm sure that you'd be right there in the Freedom Caucus with those guys. Would you see yourself moving in that direction to sort of align with Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz?
Yeah, Jim Jordan, 100%.
Yeah.
I love Jim. He's a great guy. I was a wrestler growing up. Jim's a wrestler.
I'm a wrestler too.
Are you really?
Yeah.
So we're a different breed, and it's funny because people are like, how come Jim Jordan never wears a suit jacket? How come he never wears a sport coat? I'm like, he's a wrestler, man. Yeah. We run hot, and we never know when a takedown clinic is going to break out.
Yeah. Well, when you look at Jim Jordan, we're kind of going off subject a little here, but he was really the 300 of the past, because Obama, at his height of popularity, he was bigger than the Beatles. There was no Freedom Caucus. There was no Donald Trump. There was no Matt Gaetz. There was no none of these people. There was only one guy, Jim Jordan, and he would stand up, and he would be entirely politically incorrect and stand up against that PC narrative, that agenda. I don't know how he lived, but I mean, my point being is that he did that when it was just amazing. He had no support, none. And that's just an incredible statement on that man.
He and Mark Meadows in those early days, they were incredible stalwarts for liberty and freedom.
Yeah.
Great guys.
Yep.
Yep.
I'd like to take the conversation back to the Texas State House. It has been such an incredible 4 years. We watched them attempt to impeach Ken Paxton. They had everything in place to get the job done. The corporate media, it was like a military surprise attack, right? They had all their guns and weapons loaded and in place, ready to go, because the minute they flipped that switch and went after him, the media was in place like battleships firing, right? And they were just rat-a-tat-tat and fire everywhere, putting out the propaganda, Ken Paxton bad, Ken Paxton bad. And what happened in the state of Texas is parents and citizens stood up, in a grassroots way, and rallied a counteroffensive. And they had us outspent, outgunned everything. and we somehow pulled that thing off. I mean, what is your opinion of what we saw during that time? I think that's a part of Texas history that's going to go down as a significant part.
It was one of the most evil things I have ever seen. Um, if you really want to understand what happened, it's either on Netflix or it's on Prime, and it's called Atticus versus the Architect. Atticus versus the Architect. And it's the story of Eric Holder, Democrat, and Karl Rove, Republican, taking out a pro-life Democrat governor in Alabama. And it is the game plan for how they tried to take Ken out. They did all the investigative work in secret. No one was sworn in. So in other words, you could perjure yourself, but because you were never sworn in, you could never be held liable for it. The other side, Ken's side, was never questioned. They never were allowed to speak in front of the General Investigative Committee. So the General Investigative Committee only took testimony from the prosecuting side, from the offending side. And it was the most egregious thing. They accused him of taking $100,000 payoffs. It's the same thing that they accused the governor of Alabama. He was accused of cooperating and doing all these terrible things. None of it was ever proven true. They were successful in taking out the governor in Alabama. He was later found innocent, but by God's grace, Ken got to tell his side of the story in the Senate, and they put on a full trial. All the accusations that they had against Ken were just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it should have been an incredible embarrassment for them. Dan Patrick, who presided over the impeachment hearings in the Senate, did a fabulous job. He should be really proud of himself for what he did. He worked really hard, and I know the Senate took it very seriously, and they arrived at a not guilty verdict.
Yeah, it was an incredible time. I mean, and just to mention Ken Paxton, I mean, the man showed up as just, I believe, a state rep immediately from day one at the height of the Bush popularity in the state of Texas. I would say Bush controlled the state, Karl Rove controlled it, and he was a thorn in their side from day one. And
Yeah.
now today he is a serious challenger for John Cornyn's seat. I mean, that's just a David versus Goliath story. It's incredible, and I agree with you. Dan Patrick's closing statement, where he essentially kept his opinions to himself until he was done with that trial, and then he let the establishment know what they put the state of Texas through was completely wrong. It was incredible. One last question for you, Steve. So what is the state of TLR, and probably the audience needs a description of what TLR is. What is this state of TLR and Dade Filon and that establishment's hold on the state of Texas today?
I don't really know how to answer that question. I don't think TLR is the boogeyman that everyone wants to say they are.
I got that opinion from that Texas scorecard video that was...
Yeah, I don't completely agree with them, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that Scorecard puts out, but I'm not on the same page with them on this. I don't think TLR is the group that came after Ken.
Right.
I can't put the connections together. I don't see any of the pieces. I get the fact that they supported Eva Guzman for AG over Ken. I don't see any correlation, though, between what happened in the impeachment and TLR. I do see it, though, with ART, the Associated Republicans of Texas. They have a ton of money. They're headed up by Karl Rove. And he was the architect he's called the architect, right? And he was the architect of taking out the Alabama governor with Eric Holder. So I don't see it. I think it's a straw dog. I really do. I am concerned about this alliance, very unholy alliance, between the Texas Trial Lawyers Association and conservatives in the Republican Party. Um, that that really truly scares me. Every time, Chris, every time we would put an amendment up or a bill up, and Democrats would call a point of order, they would show up at the dais to argue their point of order in front of a Democrat parliamentarian from the Obama administration. And when they get up there with a file folder that's 30, 40 pages of court precedents, stare decisis, the whole way you argue the point of order against the Republicans, and it's all put together by the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. All of it. I mean, it's incredible. They have a stable of attorneys that work to defeat us on everything. And then on top of it, you've got a Democrat parliamentarian calling balls and strikes. It's a no-win thing for us. And yet now all of a sudden Republicans have climbed into bed with the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. I don't get it at all. I just do not get it.
Well, it's good to know that. I think that the people of Texas need more perspectives, and maybe you just gave us one. Well, Steve, to finish out, first I want to say that it's been an honor to know again. Oh, I didn't get to cover we don't need to get into it, but just one last thing, to give you my perspective. We were out here, fighting all these district attorney initiatives in Fort Bend County. They had a serious under the radar agenda, and the citizens were fighting against that. And again, I feel like we were the front lines. You were the cavalry, to reinforce, because you guys came in and passed that law that said if DAs don't follow the law, and of course that means that they're following the Soros agenda, then they can be removed by the Texas State House. See, that's the kind of stuff where I feel like you and I were in this battle together. Me on the front lines, you coming in with the reinforcements. So I really appreciate everything that you've done. It's been a great bonding experience. Appreciate you big time. With that being said,
buddy, I just appreciate you stepping up and being a voice of truth, because the blessing of social media, the blessing of being able to have access to we the people now, we've put the establishment globalist media in its place, and it's why you see shows like Stephen Colbert going off the air, right? It's because people don't see that. First off, he's not funny, but number one, but number two, people are like, this is bullcrap. I'm hearing what the truth is, because there's so many different places where the truth can be heard, you being one of them, and we're just really grateful to you.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. If you could, please let the people know what are the pertinent dates coming up to this primary. What do we need to support you, and where can they find more information about you?
Steve Toth for Congress, www.stevetoth for FOR Congress, and we need your help. It's gonna take an army of people, small donations, large donations, whales and minnows. We need everyone to go and pitch in what they can to help me with this.
Excellent, very good. And I want to tell the people again, tune into this primary, because it is history in the making. Yeah. I mean, it's just we have it's like a prize boxing match. I love this stuff. So, with that being said, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to staying in touch with you and learning about your campaign, and hopefully we can have you on again soon.
Thanks so much, Chris. God bless you.
Same to you. Have a good day.